say welcome and hello and happy Thursday morning in our blustery, overcast mornings in Portland here from Portland Insight Meditation Community. It's so good to see everybody. Let's let a few other people come in. We may have the joy of noticing sound arising as people connect with their devices and then get them muted. Hi, Wally. Good to see you there. Well, let's just take a moment as we're settling down to notice what is happening in the mind. Notice what the attitude of the mind is, what the mood of the mind is. As we get out of bed and noticing what the body is doing as we make our way to our seat. There's a certain consistency in coming every morning and a certain confidence in the practice. So I thought maybe at the end of our sitting, just for a couple of minutes, I would maybe speak a little bit about confidence and we can have some conversation. Taking a few breaths and finding our way to settling the body and calming the mind. Just taking that moment as the awareness and mindfulness is coming into our body. Noticing what's happening in the mind without judgment of it or need to make it be doing something else. As we settle, rustle around, find our nest. I don't think I mentioned that I'm Candle Summers. I think I've met most of you before, and it's a pleasure to be able to serve you in sitting and talking about the Dhamma. It's a precious life that we live, to be born in this lifetime, to be able to hear the teachings of the Dhamma, understand that there were realized beings, and to have each other, the Sangha. Those of you who just joined in, welcome. Good to see you. And I'm going to take a moment here and ring the bell, and let's just let this become sound without grasping at whether it's pleasant or not pleasant. Just letting pureness of sound arrive at the ears. I better make sure I have my original sound on. Let's see if this is going to work. I hope it will. The call to the Dharma, the call to our familiar seat. Or perhaps we're standing, we could be walking, we could be laying down. awakening can happen in any position. And once again, taking the first few moments to officially pay respect and homage to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, taking refuge in the Buddha and the other enlightened Buddhas before him, who saw for themselves and had the wisdom and generosity to bring the teachings to others, and to the Dhamma, the teachings themselves, that show us the way, and the Sangha, each other in this circle, and all of the Sanghas of the lay people and monks and nuns, laymen and women who have gone before us, that we have this opportunity to, once again, no matter what's going on, we are willing to sit. We are willing to be present with whatever's arising in the body and in the mind. Taking a couple of breaths in whatever way you want to, whatever feels comfortable. Finding a way to settle into the position. Finding our own way and seeing what's true for us. We'll have about a 40-minute sitting session and some announcements and some time of sharing with each other. If you're new and haven't been to PIMC before, welcome. And this is a time to share with each other in our own space, interestingly enough. We have the solitude of our own container, and we have the support of others around us. Taking a few breaths through the body, noticing settling of the body onto the seat or cushion or floor if we're standing. So we have a couple of lines of energy from the earth and also from above. We can allow a kind of rest and relaxation to flow through the body, relaxing behind the eyes and at the jaw, the throat. Whatever that looks like for you, just putting a little attention in, noticing what's happening in the body. And sometimes as soon as we put our attention into what the jaw feels like or what the throat feels like, we can send a little relaxation in those areas, letting the shoulders settle, allowing the heart to feel full, open, or however it feels. We just notice. Noticing the lungs, we may notice the breath in the lungs and the rib cage. We can notice the settling of the body, the feeling of touch at the buttocks on the seat, at the hands where they touch or the arms where they touch. Coming into the senses. Gathering this fathom-long body, these 5 aggregates coming together on a relative level of forming who we are sitting together. Having a container in this lifetime, this container of our bodies. And feeling the breath within the body. We may begin to notice when we bring mindfulness and awareness to the forefront that we can feel the breath. Where do you feel it the most? Do you feel it at the nostrils? Do you feel it at the rib cage and the lungs as the breath expands? At the diaphragm and the belly as pressure fills? Or do you feel it through the whole container of the body? Whatever works for you, noticing, being aware of the rising and the falling of the breath. And so we come in a little more into the container. We may notice the length of our breath, being with it, really knowing that it's short or long on the inhale or the exhale. Whatever way you are used to really being present. We can always come back to this point at the breath or the feeling of anchoring in the body. If the mind gets lost for too long and carries us away, we can use this single object of the breath or a touch point of the body on the cushion to remind us to be present. We may notice coolness at the nostrils or warmth if it's the inhale or the exhale. If the attention is at the diaphragm, we may notice pressure and the release of that pressure. If the attention is anchored in the whole body, the container of the body, we may notice tingling or expansion. We may notice warmth at different places throughout the body. And so wherever your place of comfort is for staying mindful and aware can be used for concentration from time to time. As we inhabit this body and become friends, bringing awareness to whatever we are noticing. Most of you are familiar with the hindrances, but in case there's anyone new, I'll just mention that sometimes as we sit, we may notice grasping at something, wanting something to stay. We might notice clinging, we might notice aversion. Sometimes we push something away, wishing that it were more comfortable. There may be tiredness that arises. We can just notice these things. They're part of our existence of being. Sometimes there's doubt. If we're longer-term practitioners, there may be doubt in the practice, a feeling of stuckness or, gee, I came again, but I wonder why. Sometimes there's restlessness. The body just wants to move. Or there's anxiety, restlessness in the mind. All of these are part of our human existence. And as we see clearly the nature of discomfort in this human life, we can be aware of these as they rise, and we can also notice that they are impermanent. They don't last forever. They arise and pass away. And so we take this time to use whatever our attention is going toward, the single object of attention or the whole body, or noticing these defilements when they arise. They're called defilements because they can be agitations, or they can be ways of keeping us from seeing clearly. They defile the mind of its purity in the ancient language of the translators. But by continuing to be present with whatever is arising, taking the attention to the breath, it can develop concentration. And these hindrances can be kept at bay. And we can also notice other mind states that may arise. We can incline the mind toward skillful activities of kindness for ourselves, holding ourselves in kindness for taking the time to be here. we can recognize that we're developing concentration, or the Pali word is samadhi, a calmness that can occur. There can be a joy arising in the mind, because at any moment, mindfulness is there, awareness is there. We just wake up to that moment. Wherever we are, if we're lost in a thought, we can wake up right there and say, oh, this is how it feels. There's fuzziness, or there's clarity, or this was a thought about, and you can put a soft, gentle note on it and go on from there to see where the energy, where the effort might be taking you, just enough effort to see what is present in the body right now, what is the attitude of the mind. The Buddha was very pragmatic. He didn't really philosophize about the nature of reality. He gave us simple and basic guidelines about how we can manage the challenges and difficulties of life. And he also pointed out qualities that are present in varying degrees in all of our activities. Mindfulness and concentration, energy and effort, confidence or faith, and wisdom, the wisdom to discern. And that's what we do on our own in our daily practice and together, over and over again, training the mind, opening the heart. And being present with what is, what's arising and passing away, noticing that whatever our attention is on, it's impermanent. We can't hang on to it. It's not personal. letting the sound of my voice just be sound arriving at the ears. If you notice yourself from time to time lost in thought or stuck perhaps in some place in the body that might be having discomfort, or a place in the mind that might be a little difficult, we can just be present with what is there and bring our awareness to the actual feeling tone, that it may be pleasant, or there may be unpleasantness, or we might not know. It could be neutral, a neutral feeling, or thought, or sensation, which is another approach to deepening our practice, noticing the feeling tone. It gives us another level of mindful awareness to be present to. Bringing our kind attention to the container of our body, noticing gravity, being aware if there's tension in the body, noticing the mood, the attitude of the mind. And so we can have changing objects of awareness gently, spaciously, holding our awareness to be noticed when something arises. Noticing anicca, the Pali word for impermanence. It changes. It arises and passes away. And seeing this clearly brings moments of awakening. And this is the gladdening of the mind, bringing joy to the heart and mind, and bringing tranquility. And these moments of awareness can increase our faith in the practice, our confidence. And as our attention is being drawn to various impermanent things that are arising, catching our mindfulness and our awareness, we're noticing that they pass away. Sometimes there's a little aggravation in the mind, wanting something to pass sooner, or some grasping, wanting that calm, quiet space where your shoulders were relaxed and your belly was filled and you felt grounded to stay longer. It all arises and passes away, and it brings us happiness, and the greatest happiness is peace as we are present, whether we're in meditation or sitting or walking or standing or moving throughout our lives. We can hold ourselves in kindness, gently. We can bring a sense of compassion when things are difficult. Holding within our hearts a close friend, someone for whom it's easy to feel kindness and compassion. We might imagine this person in our hearts, happy and healthy, wishing them ease and well-being. May they be free from grasping and clinging. May they have happiness. And we let this feeling from our heart, whatever way we can, to embrace them. Sometimes to open our hearts, we can remember a place that makes us happy, or a being that opens our heart. It could be a child, an animal, being out in nature, somewhere that you might like. In whatever way we can, we let our hearts hold another. We can let this kindness and compassion go to a teacher, maybe the first person who brought us to the Dharma. Or maybe it's that grandchild who's teaching you. Allowing a sense of well-being to include this benefactor or teacher in our hearts. And allowing this sense of well-being to include ourselves if we haven't already. There are formal phrases that you might know. May I be free from inner and outer harm, safe and protected. May my mind be relaxed. May my body be healthy and strong. May I take care of myself happily. Or you might have your own phrases, or it may just be a feeling, or the simple words of metta and karuna, loving kindness and compassion. Sometimes it's useful to put our hands somewhere on our body to ground and feel this kindness and allowing compassion to open to others, feeling other people's suffering, and allowing equanimity to come in so that we don't fall into extremes, so that we don't ourselves fall in toward pity. That's the near enemy of compassion. And so allowing equanimity and joy, the joy of uplifting the mind and allowing openness of our hearts to encompass others in compassion and kindness, the interconnectedness of everything. May this sense of grounding and well-being and compassion, whatever amount that we feel, there's no pressure around it. Maybe you want to just stay with your close friend or with the benefactor. But we can also let it spread out to others that we don't know. Maybe one of our neighbors that we only see every now and then. Or somebody doing yard work down the street. There may be that homeless person that you've seen several times in the same place. Allowing kindness and compassion to include them. Just as I wish to be happy, I know that you also wish to be happy. Doing our best, staying open, calm, and relaxed. Giving ourselves kindness. And letting this feeling flow in various directions to our family and our friends, to beings seen and unseen, those known and unknown. Those that swim and crawl, walk, fly. Those that are enlightened and those that are unenlightened. May all beings everywhere know happiness and the causes of happiness. May we emanate this kindness and compassion from our grounded, seated container of our body, breath, breathing. Whether we're actively doing things or whether we're in the comfort of our home and in our body, may this kindness and compassion flow to all beings. And may we know and understand that the benefit of our practice, the merits, the goodness of our practice, whatever it is, whether we had difficulty through the entire practice or whether we felt spacious and aware, it is all of great benefit to all beings. Anicca vata sankhara upadavaya domino upakita wa meruchanti te samvapasamo sukho. All conditioned things are impermanent. They arise and pass away. And seeing this clearly brings the greatest happiness, which is peace. May we be reminded of this peace with every breath that we take. And noticing with mindfulness what happens in the body, what happens in the mind when you hear that sound coming to your ears of the bell. It might signify the ending of one moment and the beginning of another moment as we notice what's the attitude of the mind. Being mindful as we reach out, noticing the moving of the arm toward the glass of water or the glasses. Letting softness of light coming to the eyes. Gently, without effort, but just include, if you're looking at a screen that has a few squares in it, just allowing that kindness to flow out to others. Noticing what happens with the breath. Is it still short or long, or warm or cool? Can we let ourselves open and still stay mindful to seeing and to hearing and to the more gross sensations that come to our senses now? Before I move over to some announcements, I wanted to just continue in our vein of this state of being. Because Robert had mentioned last week on Sunday something that he and I have been doing in a conference called Many Communities, One Sangha. And he had mentioned Sharon Salzberg and one of her conversations involving faith. And I thought that I would just briefly give us a reminder. And I brought it up a little bit in the sitting about the 5 faculties. There are skillful states of mind that can be cultivated. The 5 faculties, the 7 factors of enlightenment, and we can be aware of these all the time throughout our movement in the day. And the Buddha, he started with the basic human condition that we often suffer, and that suffering can take many forms. There's anxiety and tension and stress and grief. There's fear, dissatisfaction. And he emphasized that suffering is workable and that we can engage with our suffering in such a way that we can be free from it. And so he described the 5 faculties that we need to develop to do it. And confidence is the very first one. That's Saddha. Saddha is faith or confidence. And as we develop faith and effort just the right amount of effort, mindfulness, concentration, discernment. These 5 faculties are present in varying degrees in almost all of our activities. They're useful for developing any kind of skill, whether we're playing a musical instrument or training in a sport or cultivating a meditative mind. And he recognized these universal human capacities and taught us how to use them and to develop the craft of meditation. And so the first one of faith, Saddha, confidence, I think it's the first one because without it, we'd probably never even step onto the Buddhist path. The more confidence we have, the more fully we engage in the process of meditation. And we begin spiritual practice. When we begin it, our confidence might be inspired by someone that we've met or something that we read. And in time, we learn from our own experience that the practice is helpful. Then our confidence becomes verified. The first one is called bright faith. The second one is a verified faith. You might have learned from experience that mindful breathing can calm your nervous system or temper impatient impulses. Or maybe you've learned that remaining mindful in your body gives you more stability and calm. Or maybe you've seen that mindfulness of clinging helps free us from that clinging. And so with each of these experiences, our confidence in both our ability to be mindful and the value of mindfulness grows. And then that becomes a faith that is abiding. It can become a continual abiding state that we can touch into. And so I thought I would read one short section, and this will take us into the announcements. Because this book, What the Buddha Taught, by Walpola Radula, is a really good way, if you haven't delved much into what the Buddha taught, the practices, it will go through the Four Noble Truths. And it has various selections from texts, so it gives us an opportunity to understand in some of the simple languages the deeper teachings of the Buddha. And so let me see if I picked a section that is really worthy of what I want to say. Actually, I thought you might get a kick out of this before I read the faith part. And that is that, well, there's a section where someone who's visiting the Buddha wants to know, because, they're ordinary lay people, ordinary lay men and women, leading a family life with wives and children and partners and spouses and, whatever we do in our binary and non-binary gender activity. But they are asking the Buddha about how to conduct oneself to be happy in the world. And surprisingly enough, the Buddha tells them that there are 4 things that are conducive to a person's happiness. And one of them is skilled, efficient, earnest, and energetic in whatever profession one is engaged. And one should know that they should protect their income. And since you've earned it righteously with the sweat of your brow, that this refers to protecting your wealth from thieves, not hoarding it. And there's an idea that can consider that one should have good friends, kalyanamitta, like us in our Sangha. And then the 4th one is one should spend some reasonably in proportion to one's income, not too much and not too little, that you shouldn't hoard your wealth, nor should you be extravagant. So it's interesting to hear that the Buddha actually talks to lay people, about their lives. It's not just the monks and the nuns. And sometimes he even went into details about saving money and spending it. And for instance, when he told this young man, Sigala, that he should spend a quarter of his income on daily expenses, half on his business, and put aside a fourth for an emergency. So I just thought that was interesting, so pragmatic, because there are also plenty of other places in the writings about generosity and how we can be generous with our time and giving dana in monetary form to the monks and the nuns, or in our case to PIMC when we give our monthly donation. But meanwhile, the purpose here of this conversation, here's one small section. Then the Buddha expounds the 4 virtues conducive to a layperson's happiness. Saddha is the very first one. He should have faith and confidence in moral, sila, spiritual, and intellectual values. Sila, one can abstain from destroying and harming life, from stealing and cheating, from adultery, from falsehood, and from intoxicating drinks. So those are the 5 precepts: not stealing, having appropriate sexual conduct, not lying, and not involving one's being so that the mind is altered. And then there's kaga. He should practice charity or generosity without attachment and craving for his wealth. And then panya. One should develop wisdom, which leads to the complete destruction of suffering, to the realization of freedom. And so just these 4 things, as saddha being confidence in sila, confidence in sila, bhavana, in both moral and spiritual and intellectual values. And 1 sila, so we have saddha, sila, kaga, and panya. And saddha is right up there at the very top. Faith and confidence in the Dhamma, in sila, and the ability to feel generosity of the heart. So that was just kind of on my mind when I heard Robert speak on Sunday and mentioning faith. So just take a moment, breathe deeply, let some of those words settle over you. I put in the chat portlandinsight.org, so you can go there and have the ability to be generous in monetary form if you feel like it. And I also wanted to mention that Robert has a class that he's starting on what the Buddha taught. It starts in a week or so, November 3rd. And there are the various weekly classes. On Thursday night is Doug Pullen with The Heart of Freedom. And there's also Monday night. I believe that Jim has the guest house. And there's also a book club that meets. They're a closed group, but they open when each book becomes, the next book is read. And if you happen to think about it, save your date of December 4th, the first Saturday of the month, if you want to spend a little bit more time sitting and walking and opening your heart to the Dharma. I'm going to do a day long on that day. It's not really a day. It's just from 9 to 2. So no pressure, as they say in Hawaii. And on November 20th, Jim does one of his half-day Qigong retreats. So visit the website. You might also notice that we are keeping the community abreast of what the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee is doing. And there's a little report there with a list of things that has been going on. And I'm thinking if any of you have to clock out of here early, I'm going to ask Tim to sing something for us. And then if you'll stick around, I want us to share with each other ways that you may have noticed generosity coming into your life, or joy coming into your life, or a way that you might have felt confidence around the practice. But first, let's ask Tim, wherever you may be. There you are, Tim. Okay, wait, don't do anything yet. My speaker went off. And I want to hear you.
Source.
There we go. Okay.
Oh no, I'm okay. This is I wrote new words to a beautiful Brazilian song called Pantaderia, and it's a song by Milton Nascimento. And the original words are beautiful, but they're in Portuguese, so they're so they're not much use to me. And the English translation I found was just clunky and awkward, so I just started over. So this isn't a translation, this is just new words.
Fantastic.
But kind of in the spirit of the song.
Fantastic. I put you on spotlight, so you're stuck seeing yourself.
Okay. Hear the children singing bravely, clear and bright. See their faces shining with no sorrow inside. How can we not love them, treasure their sweet gift? How can we not give them safety, wonder, and light? Was there once a time, perhaps not long ago, when the world was softer, rounder, less sharp and cold? When we took the time to laugh and sing and dance, when our eyes could see the magic of simple things. Were our hearts more open then and less afraid? Could we then be counted on to reach out a hand? If this is a memory of what once was so, then perhaps some part of it can be so again. If this is a dream and only that, let it be a star to guide us through the dark night. If this is a dream and only that, let it be a star to guide us through the dark night.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for sharing.